Good morning, everybody. Happy Wednesday. Tomorrow is spring break. We don't have school Thursday, Friday, or Monday. You won't be getting any new assignments. That doesn't mean that if you didn't finish assignments that you're off. You still have to get those assignments complete. So tomorrow, Friday, and Monday, you won't have any new assignments. Make sure you're going over to your special classroom and checking to see if you have assignments from Mr. Dixon, Mr. Meyer, Miss Corrette, Miss Kane. I think that's it. If I forgot somebody, we've been out of school way too long. So today, Neville and I, he's here. We're going to read another selection from No More Homework, No More Test. This one's called Confession. Now let's think, what's a confession? A confession is when I do something wrong and I come to you and I say, hey, look, I got to confess this to you. I'm the one that did that. Joy should have confessed to Mauricia, I took your lunch. Okay? By her doing that, that's a confession. She made a confession. Or somebody is being questioned for a crime that they did and they make a confession. They said, yeah, it was me and here's kind of how I did it. Okay? Confession. I have a brief confession that I would like to make. If I don't get it off my chest, I'm sure my heart will break. I didn't do my reading. I watched TV instead, while munching cookies, cakes, and chips, and cinnamon raisin bread. Munching, eating. I didn't wash the dishes. I didn't clean the mess. Now there are roaches eating crumbs, 1,000,000 more or less. I didn't turn the TV off. I didn't shut the light. Just think of all the energy I wasted through the night. I feel so very guilty. I did a lousy job. I hope my students don't find out that I'm such a slob. Yeah, you don't have to worry about that being me. As soon as bugs are involved, well, I would never let it get to this. No, not cool. And that's by Bruce Lansky, the gentleman that put together this book, that made the selection. He also does write some poems. He's a poet. He's a poet, and he did know it. So we left off. Mr. Gorf was he had been locked himself in the closet, and Myron let him out. Myron was being a little troublesome before he, did that. So chapter 11 is called Voices. My name is Mr. Gorf, said the man who stepped out of the closet, and surprisingly as it may seem, the children weren't afraid. It was his voice. His voice was full of comfort and wisdom, like an old leather chair in a dusty library. It didn't matter what he said. I felt good just to listen to him. He was a handsome man with neatly combed brown hair and clean fingernails. He carried a brown briefcase. So nobody even noticed that his nose had 3 nostrils. Your nostrils are the holes through which you breathe. So he had 1, 2, and 1 in the middle here. Since I'm going to be your teacher for the next few months, let me tell you a bit about myself. I was born in the Himalayan mountains in a town called Kathmandu. Kathmandu, said Terrence. Cool. Everyone laughed. They weren't laughing at Terrence. There was just something about the name of the city and the way Terrence said it. Terrence's voice sounded like a rusty drain pipe. Have you ever been married? Asked Allison. Allison's voice was like a cat walking across a piano. No, I'm a bachelor, meaning he's unmarried. Allison smiled, greatly relieved. Well, that's enough about me, said Mr. Gorf. How about some of you telling me about yourselves? My name is Mac, said Mac without raising his hand. Mac's voice was like a freight train. I built the biggest snowman you ever saw. Man, it was huge. I had to stand on a ladder and put a hat on my head. It was a stovepipe hat, like Abraham Lincoln wore. But I didn't know why they called it that. We have a microwave oven. Have you ever put a bag of marshmallows in a microwave oven? Man, it's like... The page is being stuck. Mr. Gorf's nose flared. His right nostril flared to the right. His left nostril flared to the left, and the hole in the middle seemed to get larger. Matt coughed. I'm sorry, not coughed. Not sniffled. He tried to speak, but no words came out. Thank you, Max, said Mr. Gorf. Anyone else? Dee Dee raised her hand. Yes, young lady, said Mr. Gorf. Dee Dee giggled. She liked the way he said young lady. My name is Dee Dee, she said. Her voice was small but full of energy like a Super Bowl. I like soccer and Ninja Turtles, and my favorite... Mr. Gorf's nose flared. Dee Dee lost her voice, too. Who's next? Asked Mr. Gorf. Yes, the girl in the polka dot shirt. My name's Mauricia, said Mauricia. I have 2 brothers and 1 sister. Mauricia's voice was like a pineapple milkshake. Whatever that meant. Mr. Gorf sucked it up through his nose. Hey, what's going? Said Todd. Todd was silent. Look at his nose, Eric Bacon shouted. It has... Eric Bacon had nothing else to say. Nobody say any... Jenny tried to warn, but her voice disappeared up Mr. Gorf's nose. Soon the class was quiet. Mr. Gorf's middle nostril had snorted all of their voices, except for Allison. She remained silent. She knew she'd just get one chance to speak, and she had to wait for just the right moment. What good little boys and girls you are, said Mr. Gorf, so nice and quiet. He laughed. Of course this isn't my real voice, he said. I stole this voice from a gentleman I met in Scotland. He touched the tip of his nose. This is my voice, he squawked. If a donkey could talk, and if a donkey had a sore throat, and if that donkey spoke with a French accent, that was what Mr. Gorf's voice sounded like. But what he said next was even more horrible than his voice. Is that possible? Mrs. Gorf was my mommy. The children sat frozen in their chairs, too scared to move. Suddenly there was a knock on the door. Mr. Gorf touched his nose. Who is it? He asked in the pleasant voice he stole from a Scottish gentleman. Miss Mush, said Miss Mush from the other side of the door. I just came up to say hello and welcome you to Wayside School. That was very nice of you, Miss Mush, said Mr. Gorf. But we're very busy right now. Maybe we can go get together for some tea and crumpets sometime. Miss Mush giggled. That sounds lovely, she said. By the way, Mr. Gorf, are you married? No, I am single, said Mr. Gorf. So am I, said Miss Mush. Miss Mush, Allison shouted. Help! Mr. Gorf is taking our... Mr. Gorf's nose flared. Did you say something, Allison? Asked Miss Mush. Mr. Gorf touched his nose. Then he spoke, this time using Allison's voice. Mr. Gorf is taking us on a field trip next week, but he might need help. Do you want to come with us? Maybe, said Miss Mush. Thank you, Allison. Don't thank me, said Allison's voice. Thank Mr. Gorf. He's the best teacher in the whole world. I'm glad, said Mrs. Mush. He sounds very charming. And so do you, said Mr. Gorf, speaking like the gentleman from Scotland. He touched his nose. See you later, Miss Mush, said the voice of Eric Ovens. Take care, said Calvin's voice. Have a nice day, said Kathy's voice. Okay. Tomorrow we'll read Nose. We'll learn more about Mr. Gorf's nose, which is kind of gross. I'll read you a poem. I'll do a quick... I'm not going to do a video on the caterpillars today. They're exactly the same. I have 9 in a chrysalis that have formed that shell. The one is not forming that shell. I think it, like the one that was just hanging upside down straight. I think he died. But tomorrow, Mr. Forbes and I are going to put them in their new habitat. So that should be a fun video to watch because Mr. Forbes and I, we are not insect people. We do not like them. I have done this before. I usually do it at school and have somebody like Mrs. Kurtz, Miss Laracy, or my old friend Mrs. Grugan help me with this. So Mr. Forbes has never helped me with this. So that will be a funny show, but that'll be more tomorrow afternoon after he gets home from work because he works in a nursing home, so he still has to go to work. And I know some of your parents are still going to work at this time and not just working at home. Remember, boys and girls, I love you. Take care of yourself. Remember to be kind. And I will talk to you later. Bye.